Let's change the paradigm. And when we look at something like 191, or whether we look at accountability, let's have another conversation, because that's only one part of the conversation. Let's make sure that the other part of the conversation is providing the tools and resources for teachers in every classroom to make sure they can get the job done. And so while we do need more accountability, we need more resources. And until we're a much higher rank than 48th out of the country in terms of resources for teachers, we're not doing a good enough job in making sure resources are getting into the classroom. And I also want to address whether we are looking at one model or another in terms of ranking the schools. So let's not confuse a rank with whether a charter is a good model or whether a neighborhood school is a good model. When you look at the School of Science and Technology, a charter school, and they're graduating 100% of their kids and sending them to college, we all better say that's a good model that should be replicated in the district. But when we're also looking at Beach Court Elementary, which as a neighborhood school had the highest growth in CSAPs of any school in the entire state, we also better recognize that that's a great model that needs to be replicated all throughout the city. So yes, let's rank, but let's be fair about it. Let's make sure that the resources are there to give teachers the tools they need to excel in the classroom, and let's focus the conversation on high student achievement. Thank you.
I'm going to change gears here, get everyone involved with a few yes/no questions. We have 6 of them, and while we recognize they may be more complex than a yes/no answer allows, we would appreciate a yes/no answer if possible. We're going to go down the road with each question. The first one, and I think we know where at least one candidate stands on this one. Did you support SB 191, the bill on teacher evaluations and effectiveness?
I'll go first.
Wait your turn. Carol Boigon.
No.
Mike Hancock.
Yes.
Linkhart. No. James Mejia.
Yes, but only with the conversation about resources for teachers to get the job done.
Well, that was 5 seconds. Chris Romer, that's a yes. And Theresa Spahn.
I'm saying no because of the problems we're having right now building the evaluation piece.
Okay, thank you.
All right. If you get on the rapid fire, remember, yes and no. Let me start here down the road, starting with Michael Hancock. Should teacher pay be based solely on years of service?
I'm sorry, start again, I missed.
Should teacher pay be based solely, primarily on years?
And this is rapid fire?
Yes.
No.
You not be too rapid, but you should be yes or no.
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 James?
No.
Chris Romer? No. Theresa Spahn?
No.
And Carol? No.
Should school wellness programs be a funding priority over other key budget items? Let's start with Linkhart in the middle. Yes. James Mejia?
Yes.
Chris Romer? No. Theresa Spahn?
Yes.
Carol Boigon?
Depends. Are you talking about firefighters? What do you mean?
Should school wellness programs be a funding priority over other key budget items? If you're mayor, you have to make budget decisions. Is this a priority? Yes or no?
For the school budget or for the city budget? Schools are running.
Wow.
We didn't write them. I'm retracting mine to wow.
We get a wow across the board?
Wow. It's very different if you ask it according to the city budget and the school budget. It's a little confusing.
All right, we want to go on. So here's one that we will start with with James Mejia. Should charter schools be able to access facilities owned by DPS and the city?
Absolutely.
Chris Romer?
Yes.
Theresa Spahn?
Yes.
Carol Boigon?
Yes.
Michael Hancock.
Yes.
And Doug Linkhart.
Yes.
Okay, we'll start here with Chris Romer on this one. The question is, would you support a mill levy increase to provide additional resources for schools?
Assuming the budget cuts, yes.
Theresa Spahn?
Yes.
Carol Boigon?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Would you support a mill levy increase to provide additional resources for schools?
Five seconds. I chaired Great Education Colorado for 7 years. Our whole mission is resources for schools. Yes.
Michael Hancock?
Yes.
Doug Linkhart?
Yes.
And James Mejia?
Yes.
All right, one more fast answer question here, yes or no question, starting with Theresa Spahn. Do you agree with the recall effort of DPS President Nate Easley? I know, it's hard.
That is really not a fair question for a yes or no. I mean, I think somebody, obviously, somebody when they're serving have to respond to their constituent base, and that constituent base, if they're not happy with their elected official, certainly have a right to run somebody else in the next election, and that, you know, Nate has to speak to his constituent base. But on the other hand, he has to vote with his conscience, and we all have to respect that. And I don't understand, so.
All right, we'll allow the 20-second answers here. Carol Boigon?
As I said, I'm running for mayor. I'm not interested in taking over the schools, but helping and moving the conversation on teaching and learning. I think this is a question for the schools, for the parents, for the voters, not for me.
Same question to Michael Hancock.
No.
And Doug Linkhart. Your question, or your answer.
No, I don't. I don't always agree with Nate, but I don't support the recall.
James Mejia.
No, let's get back to the conversation about high student achievement.
And Chris Romer.
No, I oppose it.
We want to make sure that if you want to ask a question that you have passed your cards to the aisle. There will be people picking those up, and now we will go on with our longer form questions.
This question is for Theresa Spahn. The situation with the far northeast turnaround is a highly controversial one. Do you agree with the way it's being handled by DPS? What would you have done differently in this situation as mayor to impact the process?
Well, first of all, I can't emphasize enough, I think what we're all saying is that I'm running for mayor. I don't have an education background. I don't have an education expertise. I follow what's going on in Northeast Denver, just like every other concerned citizen in Denver. Everybody in Denver cares about education. And when I read that from a citizen's perspective, what I see is a community who's very concerned. When their children in their community and their schools are not doing well, there are concerns from the citizens who live in Northeast Denver that the history in the past of shutting down schools or reorganizing schools have not always been successful. There's times that they've been successful, we can look to those, and there's times that they have not been successful. And what happens, the burden really falls on the children. They leave their community, they leave their schools, they go to other schools, and they very seldom come back. And if that reorganization or those efforts fail, it impacts that community severely and impacts all of their children. And I understand also because the schools, for all of us, have really been a center of our community. They're a place where we gather, and they're a place where your children and families identify with, and so I understand it from a citizen's perspective. I don't have an education degree. I am not struggling with these very challenging, hard issues to decide whether or not the right decisions are being made.
Before we move on, I want to just ask that in a different way. This is a school with a 6% rate of graduation with kids that don't need remediation after they graduate. So do you have an issue with shutting down a school that is doing so poorly in terms of getting results for students? Do you think that it's just the wrong way to go about it, or do you think it's...
I didn't say that.
Okay.
I said that we have seen where there has been successes when the DPS and the professionals look at that, but we have also seen where there have not been successes. We can talk about coal, for instance, where that has not been a success. And so I am not an expert in this area, and I am not going to answer that question because I really can't give a question that's based on evidence-based information, and that's really, or expertise. But I understand why the citizens are so concerned in that part of Denver.
Thank you.
My next question to Michael Hancock about the role of charter schools in the whole landscape. Should the number of charter schools in Denver be increased, and what is their role in the whole picture?
Last summer, during a discussion with community, children, and education advisors, someone asked me the most powerful question I've ever been asked. He said to me, he said, and I want you to think about this right now. He said, what's the Denver promise to our children? Let that sit in your head for a minute. What's the Denver promise to our children? I'm less concerned about counting the number of charters in Denver than I am about counting the quality of opportunity for every child in this city. I don't care less if it's a charter school or a traditional school, as long as we're making sure that every child in this city has access to a quality school. There are far too many children who are locked into failing schools in this city, and far too many parts of this city where parents are making the choice to put their kids on RTD buses or drive their kids across town to find a quality opportunity for their child. I'm one of them. The reality is, whatever we need to do to deliver on the promise of this great city and the future of our children, we need to do it. And if that comes in the form of a charter school or a donkey, we need to deliver it to our child.
And this question is for Doug Linkhart. It's about funding. Your response on the survey indicated you'd like to increase funding to improve schools. How are you planning on doing that? And what will you do with additional money specifically, if you can,
Sure.
to improve schools?
Okay, thank you. You know, Colorado is 49th in the country on funding public education, and that's embarrassing. We need to increase funding at the statewide level, and as mayor, I will work with people throughout this state to make that happen. That's number one. Number two is at the local level. We can do a lot to improve the success of our children. As a city, we are working with Denver Public Schools on everything from recycling to school-based health centers to restorative justice programs to preschool. We need to improve our funding for those kinds of programs. The school-based health center in East High School was shut down several years ago because of a lack of funding. Now, East was said to be, you know, maybe not as low income as some of the other high schools, so they said, well, we can shut this one down. Guess what? East High School still has 1,000 low-income kids. And guess what? Kids who are not low income also need school-based health centers, and both are a good investment in our future. It's a good investment in our kids, not only for learning, but for obesity and the physical fitness of our kids, and really their learning ability. So East is actually a good example of how the city can work with schools. Everything from the after-school programs that we do with Goodwill to the summer programs that we do. And I do have a plan for generating more money in the city. Long term, it means taking the money out of the back end of every problem. We spend $1 billion a year in this city. And most of that money goes to the wrong side of each problem. It goes to jails, it goes to police, it goes to emergency rooms, it goes to child welfare for kids that are taken out of their families, it goes to welfare, everything from energy use. We spend $29 million a year on Xcel energy bills. We need to be doing prevention, we need to be doing alternatives, we need to be doing energy conservation, helping kids succeed, help them get ready for school, and invest up front. We can take the same money and move it to the front end and help ensure a better future for all the people of Denver.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have some questions now from the audience, and we're just going to